The Flying Horse. Once upon a time, in a kingdom where the skies painted the dreams of its people, there lived a young prince named Elias. He was the only son of King Reginald, a wise and revered ruler. Elias was adored by all, yet there was one thing that kept him from being the true heir to his father's throne: his adventurous heart. While the kingdom prospered under his father's rule, the prince spent his time roaming the fields, exploring the wilds, and dreaming of adventures that made him the envy of the court. He was brave, charming, and full of curiosity, but terribly irresponsible. Elias's disregard for his duties had been a source of frustration for King Reginald. The young prince often shirked his lessons in governance and diplomacy, preferring instead to chase fleeting wonders and fantastical ideas. One day, during one of his frequent visits to the royal stables, Elias turned to his father with a wild request. "Father," he said, his eyes wide with excitement, "I wish to have a horse that can fly." King Reginald, accustomed to his son's whimsical requests, chuckled softly. "A flying horse? You know such creatures do not exist, Elias. Even if they did, what use would it be to you? A prince must be responsible, not lost in fantasies." But the young prince, never one to give up on his dreams, insisted. "Please, father, I want to ride high above the clouds, feel the wind in my hair, and see the world from above. I will be more responsible, I promise." King Reginald, seeing that his son's wish was more than a passing fancy, nodded thoughtfully. "Very well, I will send out scouts and soldiers to find this flying horse. But mark my words, Elias. A prince must learn to wield responsibility before seeking adventure." And so, the king sent his soldiers far and wide, seeking out rumors and legends of such an impossible creature. For weeks, they searched tirelessly until, at last, they brought a man before the king, an old magician named Meron, whose eyes gleamed with knowledge of ancient magic. "I know of the horse you seek," Meron said, his voice deep and rich with mystery. "But the beast is no simple creature. It will not bow to any rider unless that rider is worthy. The horse chooses its rider, not the other way around." Elias's heart leaped with excitement. "I will be worthy," he declared, his voice full of youthful certainty. The magician nodded, leading the way to a hidden meadow on the outskirts of the kingdom. There, standing in a grove of silver trees, was the magnificent creature, a horse with wings of shimmering silver and feathers that seemed to glow with the light of the stars. The horse's mane was a cascade of silver waves, and its eyes sparkled with an intelligence that made Elias catch his breath. "This is Zephyros," Meron said, bowing slightly. "But be warned, young prince. Zephyros will not be tamed by one alone. If you wish to ride him, you must prove yourself worthy of the adventure you seek." Without a second thought, Elias mounted the horse. The moment he touched Zephyros's back, the creature leapt into the sky, lifting off the ground with such speed and grace that Elias gasped in awe. The wind whipped around him, and the kingdom below became a mere far away and insignificant. He had never felt so alive, so free. Zephyros soared higher and higher, and Elias, lost in the thrill of flight, forgot all about the responsibilities he had abandoned. He didn't notice when the landscape beneath him changed, when the vast fields gave way to the dense, shadowy trees of the enchanted forest. He didn't hear the warnings of Meron's voice, nor did he see the clouds gathering in the distance. It was only when Zephyros banked sharply and descended toward a river that Elias's heart skipped a beat. The river was wide and wild, its currents strong and dangerous. The forest loomed darkly, the trees seeming to whisper and sway with a life of their own. Panic surged through Elias. "Zephyros, take me back. I don't want to go into the forest," he shouted, his voice cracking. But the horse did not listen. It circled above the river, as if teasing Elias, before dipping lower and lower. Fear gripped the prince's chest. He had no idea how to control the horse, and now he found himself in a land he didn't understand, surrounded by a vast, ominous wilderness. For 2 days, Elias wandered the forest, trying to find his way out. He had no map, no compass, and no idea of where he was. The trees were thick, the paths twisted, and every turn seemed to lead him deeper into the unknown. The only companion he had was Zephyros, whose wings beat softly through the air, but the horse would not offer him any guidance. The prince was frightened. He had always prided himself on his ability to face danger, but this was different. In the forest, with its shadows and strange sounds, Elias felt small, helpless. He realized, perhaps for the first time, that he could not always rely on his charm and adventurous spirit to solve his problems. He needed to be more than just a dreamer. He needed to be responsible. As the second day wore on, Elias found himself reflecting on the lessons he had ignored for so long. He thought of his father's words, of his duties as a prince, and of the people who looked to him for leadership. He understood now that being a prince was not just about having adventures or seeking glory. It was about protecting the kingdom, guiding the people, and making choices that would shape the future. Finally, on the third day, Elias came across a narrow path that led out of the forest. He recognized the familiar shape of a distant hill, the hill where the royal castle stood. With a surge of relief, he mounted Zephyros, who seemed to sense his change of heart. The horse spread its wings and soared through the sky, bringing Elias back to the safety of the palace. King Reginald awaited his son's return with a mix of concern and curiosity. As Elias landed gracefully, his face was pale from exhaustion, but there was a newfound resolve in his eyes. The king approached him, raising an eyebrow. "You have returned," the king said, his voice quiet but knowing. "Tell me, Elias, what have you learned?" The prince looked at his father and smiled softly. "I have learned that adventure is not always about seeking new heights or flying away from responsibility. It is about understanding the weight of what we carry. I was foolish to think I could ignore my duties. I want to be a true prince, father. I want to serve the kingdom as you have." King Reginald placed a hand on his son's shoulder, proud of the transformation he saw before him. "It seems Zephyros has shown you more than just the skies, Elias. Sometimes, the greatest adventure lies in the path we choose to walk, responsibly." From that day forward, Prince Elias was not just a dreamer. He became a leader, one who understood the balance between adventure and responsibility. Zephyros, the flying horse, remained a symbol of the journey he had taken, not just through the skies, but into his own heart. And as the years passed, Elias would often look to the skies, remembering the lesson the forest had taught him. True adventure is not in escaping responsibility, but in embracing it with courage and wisdom. And so, the kingdom flourished, guided by a prince who had learned the most important lesson of all, the flight of responsibility.